It was supposed to be a friendly reunion, a meeting between two of America's loudest, most controversial voices. But the second Donald Trump stepped into Alex Jones's studio, something in the air shifted. It wasn't just tension, it was anticipation, the kind that tightens the chest and makes you feel like something explosive is about to happen. The cameras hadn't even started rolling when Trump looked around the set, adjusted his cufflinks, and muttered under his breath, "Let's see if he still remembers who built this audience." Alex Jones stood by his mic, eyes burning with that manic energy his followers loved, the kind that made him seem part preacher, part truth seeker, part storm. "We're live in 60, the producer called, and for a moment, the room went silent except for the hum of lights. Two men who had once called each other allies, maybe even brothers in arms, were now sitting across from each other like two generals on opposite sides of the battlefield. When the countdown ended, the show began, but not in the way anyone expected. "Mr. President," Alex started, his tone formal, maybe even respectful, "welcome back. It's been a long time since we last talked. My audience is thrilled to hear from you." Trump leaned forward, that familiar confidence radiating from him. "They should be thrilled," he said with a half smile. "We made history together. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. You know that, Alex." The opening banter was light, but underneath it, there was something colder, like both men were waiting for the other to throw the first punch. "We sure did make history," Jones replied, his grin tightening. "But, Mr. President, some say the history didn't end well. Some say the promises didn't match the results." Trump's smile didn't fade, not yet, but his eyes hardened. "Promises?" he said, his voice dropping. "Alex, nobody delivered like I did. The wall, the jobs, the economy, we were winning like never before. Then the swamp came after me. You know that." Alex leaned closer to the mic, his tone lower now. "I know what you told the people, sir. But I also know what my sources say. And the numbers, they don't add up." The room seemed to shrink. For the first time, Trump's expression flickered, not fear, but disbelief. He wasn't used to being challenged here, not on this show, not by him. "Numbers," Trump said sharply. "Alex, I know you've been through a lot lately, but don't tell me you're starting to sound like the fake news." That line, it landed like a slap. The crew froze. Jones's grin vanished. "Fake news," he repeated slowly, his voice rising. "I've spent years defending you while the entire media world tried to destroy me. Don't you dare compare me to them." Trump raised an eyebrow. "Then don't act like them," he said flatly. "I came here to talk to a friend, not a prosecutor." A friend. The word echoed like a challenge. Because right then, everyone in that studio knew, this wasn't going to be another puff piece interview. It was going to be war. Trump's jaw tightened. Alex's voice grew steadier, colder. "I'm not here to prosecute," Jones said. "I'm here to hold you accountable. You made promises to millions of people, and some of them want to know if they were lies." And there it was, the first spark. The kind that sets everything ablaze. Trump leaned back slowly, his smile returning, but his tone now carried steel. "Be very careful, Alex. You're walking down a dangerous road." Alex didn't blink. "Maybe, Mr. President," he said, voice calm, eyes burning. "But someone has to walk it." The crew looked between them, terrified and thrilled. They could all feel it. This was no interview. This was a reckoning. The moment Alex Jones said those words, "Someone has to walk it," the room fell silent. You could feel the air thicken, as if the lights themselves were holding their breath. Donald Trump leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes fixed on Alex like a lion sizing up prey. "Accountability," Trump repeated, his tone slow, deliberate. "I've heard that word before. Usually from people who've never built anything in their lives." Alex's lips twitched, half a smirk, half a sneer. "And yet, you came here, didn't you? You didn't have to. You wanted this stage, this audience. You wanted to speak directly to the people, my people, because you still crave their belief." Trump's jaw tightened. "My people, Alex. Not yours. They believed in me long before they tuned into you." That was the first blow, subtle but sharp. Alex's nostrils flared. You think they're still yours? He asked quietly. You think blind loyalty lasts forever? They believed because you promised to fight the swamp, to drain it. But from where I'm sitting, it looks like you filled it. The words hit like a bullet. The studio crew froze. Someone's hand hovered over the mute button, just in case. Trump didn't move for a few seconds. Then, slowly, he stood. His shadow stretched across the desk, cutting through the light. You're starting to sound just like the people who wanted me gone, Alex, he said, voice low and dangerous. After everything I did for this country, after everything I did for you. Alex rose too, refusing to back down. For me? You didn't do this for me. You did it for the cameras. You did it for applause. For headlines. And when the headlines turned, you called everyone else a traitor. For a long moment, neither man spoke. You could hear the buzz of the lights, the faint hum of equipment, even the nervous breathing of the cameraman in the corner. Then Trump laughed, not joyfully, but like a man who's done pretending. You think you know me, he said. You think you understand what it's like to have the world against you. You have no idea. They came after me with everything, investigations, lies, attacks. And you? You sat behind a microphone and called it courage. Alex's face went red, but not with embarrassment, with fury. Don't you dare diminish what I've been through, he shot back. I've been cancelled, sued, banned, dragged through the mud for telling the truth, for supporting you. And now you stand here acting like the victim. Trump leaned closer, eyes burning. I am the victim, Alex. And so is every American who believed in me. Or maybe, Jones said, his voice suddenly cold and steady, they're just victims of a story you sold them. It was a sentence that cut through the room like broken glass. Trump's hand slammed down on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. You're done, he growled. You don't talk to me like that. But Alex didn't flinch. He stared back, unblinking. Then prove me wrong. Right here. Right now. Tell them you didn't sell a dream you couldn't deliver. Tell them you didn't use their anger, their hope, their loyalty, to build a movement you never intended to finish. Trump's expression changed. The fury was still there, but behind it, something else. Fear? Guilt? Maybe both. For a brief second, the mask slipped. He looked less like the unbreakable leader, and more like a man cornered by his own creation. Be very careful what you say next, he whispered. Because there are some things you can't take back. Alex's voice dropped to a whisper too, but it carried through the studio like thunder. Maybe that's the point, Mr. President. Maybe today, we stop taking things back. The producer gestured wildly off camera, mouthing cut. But neither man moved. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was confession versus denial. Belief versus truth. Trump straightened his jacket, breathing hard. Fine, he said finally. You want answers? You'll get them. But you won't like what you hear. Trump's words, you'll get answers, hung in the air like a promise made in rage. The studio lights seemed harsher now, the air heavier. Jones adjusted his headset, leaned forward, and locked eyes with Trump. Then let's begin, he said, voice calm but razor sharp. Let's start with the border, your biggest promise. Trump didn't hesitate. I built more wall than any president in history, he declared, chest puffed. Nobody's ever done what I did. We stopped caravans, we stopped crime, we stopped the chaos. The numbers prove it. Alex reached under the desk, pulled out a folder thick with papers. The sound of it hitting the table echoed through the studio like a gavel striking wood. These are the numbers, Mr. President. Official data. And they tell a different story. Trump's jaw tightened. Your numbers, my numbers, who cares? I lived it. I saw it. You think I need papers to tell me what I did? Alex's tone sharpened. No, you need honesty. And right now, you're dodging it. The wall was never finished. Deportation slowed. Funding was mismanaged. You can say what you want, but facts don't lie. Trump leaned forward, eyes narrowing into slits. I'm not dodging anything. I'm defending reality. But you wouldn't understand that, Alex. You've never had to run a country, only run your mouth. The jab hit hard. For a second, Jones froze. Then his voice dropped, colder than before. You want to make it personal? Fine. But let me remind you, I gave you this platform when everyone else shut their doors. I defended you when even your allies hid. Don't talk to me about loyalty. Trump laughed, but it wasn't amusement, it was disbelief mixed with contempt. Loyalty? You think sitting behind a microphone makes you a warrior? I was fighting Congress, the FBI, the press, and my own party. You were ranting from a basement studio. The insult landed. The air in the room turned electric. Alex's fists clenched on the table, his knuckles white. That's where you're wrong, he said through gritted teeth. I was fighting for you. For the movement. For the truth you said mattered. But somewhere along the line, you changed. Trump tilted his head, almost curious. Changed? No, Alex. I evolved. You think power doesn't change people? You think sitting in that chair doesn't teach you who your enemies really are? Maybe, Jones said, but it's supposed to remind you who your friends are too. And you forgot that part. Something snapped. Trump slammed his hand on the desk, thud. The microphones catching every vibration. I did what I had to do to survive. You don't know what it's like to have people conspiring against you every hour of every day. I made choices. Hard ones. The kind that weak men like you wouldn't understand. Alex rose slowly from his seat. You call it survival, he said, but it looks a lot like betrayal. The word betrayal echoed like thunder. Trump froze mid-gesture, staring across the table. Betrayal? He repeated quietly. You think I betrayed you? Not just me, Alex said. Everyone who believed. Everyone who gave you their voice, their trust, their vote, waiting for the revolution you promised. And all they got was excuses. Trump's eyes flared. Excuses? I gave them victories. The economy. The courts. Jobs. Strength. Respect. You think any of that came easy? Alex leaned closer, his voice now a whisper sharp enough to cut. No. But you traded something for it, didn't you? Integrity. Transparency. The truth. Trump's reply came like a growl, the truth is what I say it is. That sentence, raw, unfiltered, absolute, hit harder than any yell. For the first time, Jones blinked. The truth, what he says it is. The mask that millions once trusted had slipped completely. The camera operator swallowed hard. The tension was suffocating. Jones exhaled slowly, shook his head, and said almost sadly, that's the moment, isn't it? When a man stops serving the truth and starts serving himself. Trump's face twisted with fury. You don't understand the weight of leadership. Maybe I don't, Alex said. But I understand what happens when power becomes a mirror instead of a mission. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Trump's voice dropped to a whisper, careful, Alex. You're about to regret every word. Jones didn't flinch. No, he said. You are. The silence before the next sentence felt longer than it should have. Every person in that studio, from the camera operator to the sound engineer, knew they were witnessing something raw, something dangerous. The kind of moment that could end careers or define them forever. Trump straightened his jacket, leaned forward, and said coldly, you think you're the voice of the people, Alex? You're not. You're a performer. A loud one. And the only reason you have an audience is because you rode my wave. Alex's laugh was sharp, hollow, and furious. Your wave, he snapped. That wave existed before you ever stepped into politics. It was built on years of distrust, years of lies from both sides. You didn't create it, you just surfed it better than anyone else. But don't forget who kept it alive when everyone else wanted you erased. Trump leaned closer, voice tightening with anger. Erased? I made you relevant. You'd still be screaming in the dark corners of the internet if I hadn't brought the fight to the mainstream. Alex slammed his hand on the table so hard that one of the coffee mugs tipped over, spilling across the desk. Don't rewrite history, Mr. President. The mainstream didn't discover you, it used you. And you let it. You played their game, and when they were done, they threw you out. And now you want to pretend you're still the outsider? Please. Trump stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with a harsh screech. His voice rose, no longer calm or calculated, this was fury. You sound just like them now. CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, all of them. You used to fight with me, and now you stand there parroting their garbage. Alex stood too, matching his height, matching his fire. You turned into what you said you'd destroy, he shouted. You promised to drain the swamp, but you built your castle right in the middle of it. Trump's face turned crimson. You don't know what I faced. You think you know politics because you read headlines? You think courage is sitting behind a microphone screaming conspiracy theories? You've never been in that Oval Office, Alex. You've never had the world against you. And maybe, Alex snapped back, that's the problem. Because when the world pushed you, you pushed the people beneath you. You fired loyal men, blamed allies, turned every mistake into someone else's fault. You didn't lead, you performed. Trump jabbed a finger toward him. Don't lecture me on leadership. I delivered results. Real results. You talk, I act. Alex's voice dropped, lower, colder. You acted all right. You acted like a man who believed loyalty was a leash. Who thought fear was leadership. You silenced anyone who questioned you, and now you're mad because I won't kneel either. That line hit harder than a punch. Trump's hand tightened on the table's edge, knuckles pale. You've changed, he hissed. You've been compromised. Maybe they got to you. Maybe you sold out. Alex's eyes widened, then narrowed with disbelief. You think I sold out? After everything I lost standing by you? My platform, my sponsors, my credibility? I lost more for you than anyone, and now you're calling me the traitor? The studio was chaos now, producers whispering frantically, unsure whether to cut the feed. But it was too late. This was live. Millions were watching. Trump leaned forward, his voice a low growl. Don't pretend to be the victim here, Alex. You built your empire off my name. You used my movement to stay relevant. Without me, you're nothing. Alex's response was quiet, too quiet, the kind of calm that's more dangerous than shouting. And without me, he said, you're exposed. Trump froze. The room went dead silent again. Exposed, he repeated. Alex's tone didn't waver. I have emails. Conversations. Recordings. You want to play games, Mr. President? Fine. But remember, you're not the only one who kept receipts. For the first time, something flickered in Trump's eyes. Not rage, not pride, but unease. Are you threatening me? He asked, his voice lower, more controlled. Alex tilted his head. I'm reminding you, he said softly, that truth doesn't belong to you. Not anymore. Trump's breathing grew heavy, his voice trembling with fury. You're finished, Alex. You think you can cross me and walk away? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Jones leaned in until their faces were inches apart. I think I do, he whispered. A man who's terrified that the truth might finally speak back. The crew didn't dare move. The mics were still hot, the cameras still rolling. The world had just seen the moment the alliance shattered, the explosion that turned two allies into enemies, live, unfiltered, and unforgettable. And as the lights flickered against their faces, both men realized something that neither would say aloud. There was no turning back. For a few seconds, the studio didn't feel like a studio anymore. It felt like a courtroom or a battlefield. The silence was heavy, charged, as the world waited to see who would make the next move. Trump's glare could have cut glass. His voice came out low and deliberate, the kind of tone he used when he wanted people to feel small. You've made a serious mistake, Alex. A big mistake. You think you can threaten me with lies and fake documents? You think that makes you powerful? Jones didn't blink. It's not about power, he said. It's about truth. Something you used to believe in, before it stopped being convenient. Trump laughed, but there was no humor in it. Truth? I lived the truth while you were selling paranoia. You call yourself a journalist, but you're a showman, a chaos merchant. You make money off fear. That's what this is, isn't it? A stunt. A cheap shot for views. Alex slowly picked up a folder from his desk, a plain black one with no label. The cameras caught every move, every breath. "You want to call it a stunt?" he said, voice steady. "Then let's make it count." He opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, handwritten notes, things nobody outside Trump's circle should have ever seen. "These," Alex said, "are internal communications from your own campaign staff. Private messages about decisions that cost people their jobs, their homes, and their faith in you." Trump's eyes widened, just for a moment. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Alex said. "Because I have a direct message from one of your senior advisors calling the border promises a media illusion. I have notes about donors influencing cabinet positions. And I have evidence that while you called yourself the man of the people, your inner circle was selling access behind closed doors." The color drained from Trump's face, replaced almost instantly by rage. "You're lying," he shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. "This is the same garbage they tried to use against me before. You're no better than the media who hates me." "Maybe they hate you," Alex replied, "but I don't. I just stopped worshipping you." That sentence hit harder than any insult. It was betrayal, pure, clean, and final. Trump stood, fists clenched, pacing behind his chair like a caged animal. "You're done, Alex. I'll sue you into the ground. You'll wish you never opened your mouth." Jones leaned back in his chair, unafraid. "You can't sue the truth, Mr. President. You can try, but it doesn't stay buried. It leaks. It spreads. And once it's out, it can't be stopped." The control in Trump's face began to crack. His voice broke from anger to desperation. "You don't know what you're dealing with. You think you're some kind of hero? You're not exposing corruption, you're handing the country back to the same people who tried to destroy it." Alex's voice grew colder, quieter. "No. I'm handing it back to the people you claim to represent." Trump spun around, pointing straight at him. "You think they'll believe you over me? You think you can turn my supporters? They'll destroy you." Alex stood too, matching his fury. "Then let them decide for themselves. I'm done protecting anyone's ego, yours or theirs." The producers were in panic now. One of them whispered, "Cut the feed," but nobody dared. The cameras were locked, rolling, capturing a moment no one could ever recreate. Trump's breathing was heavy, his voice shaking with rage. "You just committed career suicide," he hissed. "You're finished." Alex stared him down. "Maybe. But at least I'll go down telling the truth." Trump's voice thundered back, "You wouldn't know truth if it stared you in the face." "Maybe," Alex said. "But I recognize fear, and I'm looking at it right now." The studio went still again. Trump froze mid-step, face pale under the lights. Alex continued softly, almost pitying now. "All these years, you made people believe you were the storm. But maybe the storm was always fear, and you were just the lightning that burned too bright, too fast." Trump's lips moved, but no sound came out. For the first time, the man who prided himself on dominance looked cornered. And then, in a final act of defiance, he leaned into the camera and said, "They can try to rewrite history, but history remembers winners. And I always win." Alex shook his head slowly. "Not this time." The lights dimmed. The feed flickered. And millions of viewers across the country sat in stunned silence, realizing they had just witnessed a political friendship die, live, in real time. The broadcast ended, but the world didn't stop watching. Within minutes, clips from the interview flooded every social platform. The hashtags #TrumpVSJones, #TheExplosion, and #TruthWar trended worldwide. Memes, headlines, reactions, they all came pouring in like a storm with no center. Millions who had once cheered both men now argued in chaos, choosing sides in a battle nobody had expected. Some called Alex Jones a hero, the first man to finally confront Trump to his face. Others called him a traitor, the man who turned on the only president who ever gave him a voice. And Trump's camp? They responded fast, faster than anyone else could think. His team released statements, denouncing the ambush, accusing Alex of staging a smear campaign. The narrative machine roared to life, painting Trump once again as the persecuted fighter, the man everyone wants to silence. But something was different this time. Behind the noise, A quiet unease was spreading. People had seen something real, something no PR team could spin away. For the first time, Trump hadn't looked in control. He hadn't looked invincible. He'd looked cornered. Human. Meanwhile, inside the InfoWars studio, the mood was nothing short of panic. Technicians sat frozen in disbelief. Assistants whispered in corners. Phones buzzed non-stop. Calls from sponsors, lawyers, old friends demanding answers. Alex Jones sat alone in the host chair, staring at the empty space across from him where Trump had stood moments ago. The echo of their argument still hung in the air. The words wouldn't stop replaying. Maybe I don't worship you anymore. He knew what it meant, the end of an era. 4 years, their alliance had been built on adrenaline and outrage. Two men feeding off the same fire, one in politics, the other in broadcasting. But now, that fire had burned them both. A producer approached hesitantly. Alex, phones are blowing up. Fox wants a statement. CNN too. Alex didn't look up. Tell them nothing, he muttered. They'll twist whatever I say. The producer hesitated. Sir, your fanbase. My former fanbase, Alex cut in, his tone sharp. Half of them think I betrayed him. The other half think I exposed him. And none of them care about the truth. They just want blood. Meanwhile, in another part of the country, Trump's team was in full damage control mode. His advisors surrounded him, speaking in hurried tones, but Trump wasn't listening. He sat in silence, staring at the screen replaying the argument, over and over again. Every few seconds, he'd mutter something under his breath. He'll regret that, he'll pay for that. Sir, one aide said softly, the footage is everywhere. We can't pull it down. Even conservative outlets are airing it. Trump turned, his eyes cold. Then we fight back. Full force. Discredit him. Leak his skeletons. I don't care how ugly it gets, he started this. It wasn't politics anymore. It was personal. Hours later, as night fell, both men sat alone, in separate rooms, in separate worlds, scrolling through the same flood of headlines tearing them apart. Trump loses temper live on air. Alex Jones turns on former ally. The interview that broke the internet. For Alex, it was vindication wrapped in ruin. He'd said what nobody else dared to say, but at a cost. Sponsors began to pull ads. His team whispered about legal fallout. Friends stopped answering calls. He'd wanted truth. What he got was isolation. For Trump, it was fury disguised as control. He knew how to weaponize outrage, but this time, the outrage had a heartbeat of its own. Some of his most loyal followers began to question him publicly. Others defended him blindly. The empire he'd built on absolute loyalty was cracking, and Alex had been the hammer. That night, as Alex sat in the darkened studio, he looked into the same camera that had captured everything. Maybe truth, he whispered, was never about sides. Maybe it's just about who's brave enough to say it first. Far away, Trump stared at the same screen, and muttered, nobody says the last word on me. Nobody. The war wasn't over. It had just left the studio and entered history. 2 days after the interview that shattered the internet, the world was still buzzing. Every network replayed it. Every podcast dissected it. But beneath the headlines and hashtags, something deeper was brewing, a need for one last confrontation. Alex Jones sat alone in his office, the glow of his computer screen painting harsh shadows across his face. The numbers were staggering, views in the millions, comments in the hundreds of thousands. But each one felt like a knife. Traitor. Hero. Sellout. Patriot. He'd started a conversation. Now the whole world was shouting back. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Alex, came the familiar voice, calm, heavy, unmistakable. We need to talk. Trump. There was no anger in his tone this time. Just exhaustion. Meet me, he said. No cameras. No crew. Just us. That night, in a private conference room at a hotel in Dallas, they sat across from each other once more. No microphones. No lights. Just two men and the silence between them. For a long while, neither spoke. Then Trump broke the quiet. You really think I lied? He asked softly. After everything? Alex sighed. I think you started with truth, Mr. President. But somewhere along the way, truth started serving you instead of the people. Trump leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. You have no idea what it's like. The power, the pressure, the noise, you start thinking you are the cause. That without you, it all collapses. He looked at Alex. Maybe I forgot that the cause was bigger than me. Alex folded his hands. Then admit it. On camera. Tell them what really happened. Not the rehearsed lines, the real story. Trump shook his head slowly. Honesty doesn't win elections. Stories do. You of all people should know that. Alex's reply was quiet, but it cut deep. Maybe that's why neither of us ever truly won. Trump's gaze hardened again, the old fire flickering. Don't mistake reflection for weakness. The fight isn't over. Alex met his stare. It never is. That's the problem. The room fell silent once more, two men surrounded by ghosts of everything they'd built and destroyed together. When Trump finally stood, his voice was lower, almost human. You'll see, he said. They'll remember me for what I built. Alex looked down at his trembling hands. And I'll be remembered for what I broke. Trump paused at the door. You still think you're the truth teller? No, Alex whispered. Just the last man who stopped clapping. Trump said nothing more. He walked out, leaving Alex alone in the hollow quiet. Outside, reporters swarmed, but neither man spoke again. The world would write its own version, some calling it bravery, others betrayal. But inside that room, both had seen the truth. Power never shares the stage for long. Back in the studio a week later, Alex went live one final time. His tone was calmer, stripped of theatrics. You saw what happened, he told the camera. Two men who once stood together finally stood apart. But this was never about sides. It was about something older, the moment when belief becomes blindness, when loyalty becomes a leash. We all chase truth until it turns around and looks us in the eye. And when it does, not everyone can face it. He paused, staring directly into the lens. If you believe truth still matters, even when it hurts, even when it costs everything, then hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment below and tell me, was I right to confront him, or did I go too far? Because this isn't just my story, it's ours. And the fight for truth, it never ends. He leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. Stay awake. Stay aware. And never be afraid to question the power you cheer for. The screen faded to black. And just before it did, the words appeared, simple, white, unflinching. In a world full of echoes, truth sounds like war. Clapperboard. If you're still watching, you're part of the 1% that cares about the truth. White down pointing backhand index comment below. Did Alex go too far, or did he finally say what everyone was thinking? Fire like, subscribe or share, and never miss the next untold story.